Hey beautiful people, and welcome to my day 2 of the 31 Days of Tarot, which is all about presenting your top 5 decks for 2016. I'm going to present the top 5 decks that I own and worked with and that I, gained a lot of insight and satisfaction out of, both for myself and for clients. But I must admit, there are a few decks that I'm absolutely crazy about that I almost ordered last year and didn't for a number of different reasons. So from a financial perspective, I refrained, which I kind of regret, can I just say that quietly, from buying the Tabula Mundi full color version. I now know that I am very much in love with that deck and I am going to proceed. I'm putting that on my list because it's here in spirit, as I was able to hold that beautiful deck in my hands because a friend of mine purchased it and I was absolutely blown away. So in other words, I watched a number of unboxings, but not until I held that deck did I realize just how powerful it is. So in spirit, that is definitely on my top 5. And also Tarot of the Holy Light, she has as well, which was also on the top of my wish list. I do have the app. And again, it's from a study perspective. It's from that perspective of delving far deeper into the world of tarot. And Tarot of the Holy Light, I understand, is a different system again. So I'm really intrigued. But the cardstock, my God, it is so amazing. The artwork is so very different, and I can honestly say, gazing at that artwork online does nothing for the deck compared to holding it in your hands. So again, I thought I was being pretty funky. I thought they're both amazing, but I don't need them. I've got plenty to work with, and so I'll leave it for now. But after holding them, different story. And I'll just give a big shout out to the Bonefire Tarot. I missed out on the original and I am going to purchase that. And I have no doubt that's going to be, that would have been a winner also, I think. So that might end up on my 2017 list. I think the Pagan Otherworlds is extraordinary, but again, I don't own it. And hats off also to the Fountain Tarot and the Orbifold, which I do both. I admire both very much, but I refrain from buying them just because of, my philosophy with having so many decks. Now, to the list that I do actually own, let's see, where do we start? Number 1, this deck really blew my mind, and that is the Amazing Dreams of Gaia. Now, I remember somebody in one of the Facebook tarot groups did mention this some time ago. And there was one image that came up, it may have been this one. She was saying this, amazing Australian woman is making this deck, or creating, should I say, this deck. And, it's going to be released in 12 months or whatever it was. And I thought, wow, how fascinating. That artwork looks amazing. But there was a strange irony for me because at that time, I had been a very, very big fan of Ciro Marchetti's work. And look, I still am. I think he's extraordinary. But I started to sway away from that, like fantasy art, computer generated, even though it's something I've loved for many, many years. But I started going a little bit more kind of earthy, I suppose you'd call it, and looking at like the Pagan Otherworlds sort of style. And but this is well before that came out. Anyway, I wanted to support Raven Phelan because she is Australian, but not only that, because I think she's amazing, so I can truly appreciate her artwork. So I was really torn. I didn't grab it first up. But then as soon as you watch deck reveals and walkthroughs, first impressions, what would I do without them? More and more people kept talking about not just the beautiful art, but the guidebook. So I listened carefully, and the more I listened, the more I thought, now this is definitely worth checking out. And when I did get the deck, I actually opened this deck in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep, and I knew it was sitting there and I was going to do an unboxing the following day. And I just couldn't wait. So I opened it up and wow, it blew my mind. It really did. The artwork is far more, I don't know, it's a little more earthy than Ciro Marchetti's work, yet it still takes you into another realm. But it was the guidebook. That guidebook blew my mind. I just felt like every time, I still feel like every time I do a spread with this deck and I read the guidebook, it's almost like I can feel a cell in my body or 1,000 popping. It's so real for me. It just literally physically resonates with me as a person. I'm just blown away. Her insight into the deck, into her art world in writing is just extraordinary. And I'm sad for anyone that got the deck and thought, nah, the artwork isn't for me, I'm going to sell it. I would say, I beseech you, please read the guidebook before you let this go, because I think it's a mistake. Just my opinion, but that's my personal journey. And this card here, when I saw knowledge, I thought that's exactly it. This deck here is to teach me something completely new. It's not just that it's a different system of tarot, it's what she has to say in the guidebook. Raven, I hope I get to meet you one day. I'm a proud Australian right now. This deck is amazing. And again, for me, it's like when you hold when you hold the cards in your hand, it really does change everything. It's different to just watching something on screen. So there we go, number 1. The next deck on my top 5 for 2016 is this beauty here, the Wild Unknown Tarot. I was really taken with Kim Kranz's artwork when the deck first came out. But strangely, yet again, I felt maybe it's not time for me to work with this deck. I just wasn't sure whether... I think I had this sort of doubt that I would actually understand the true meaning behind the artwork, even though there is a guidebook that accompanies this deck. But there was some little block for me. I just wasn't sure. I thought the artwork itself is magnificent, but do I wish to use this as a tarot deck for myself and for clients? I'm not sure. So I let the first edition go, and then, of course, when the second edition was released, I was very torn, I have to admit. I picked up that deck, and when I felt the quality of the stock, I was just blown away. It still blows me away. And when you shuffle, I've never heard a sound like it. And I'm a very tactile person, so, you know, just the feel of the deck really had an effect on me in a very positive way. So, yeah, I was torn. And then I heard that the deck was going to be mass produced, and only for financial reasons, I very nervously waited and I took a chance and purchased the mass produced, because again, in Australian dollars, it was all getting a bit ridiculous because there were so many decks that I was falling in love with. Anyway, I've got to say I'm not disappointed, and I'm so happy I do have the guidebook, because I just like to read about Kim's intent behind this beautiful artwork. That's why I wanted for this particular deck to have the guidebook. It doesn't happen with all decks, of course. Now, when I started using it though, I thought this is so interesting because I feel this deck calls to me in a highly intuitive way. So I think it was a timing thing for me that I just wasn't ready to work with this unusual style deck with, you know, featuring no people. Yet I love the concept that there's no people in this deck. I did purchase her Oracle deck, by the way. I didn't buy the tarot, I bought the Oracle. That's what I thought suited me better at the time, but more about that later. So I do love this deck, and I'm finding that I'm having incredible intuitive journeys with this deck at this time. I'm very, very happy. Now, number 3, Tarot of the Spirit. I love this deck very much, and this again is going to be, it's a bit of a cyclical deck for me. I purchased it, I used it again and again and again. I did read the little white book as well. There's something about certain decks that I just feel I need to delve deeper, and that's exactly what's going to happen for me in 2017. This deck, I'm so pleased that Pamela and Joyce Eakins, on their website you can purchase a study course with them. And I just feel this deck, just like Thoth, is it's almost like it deserves the extra time. It's not something to just skim across the surface and use it as a Rider-Waite clone, because clearly it isn't. I find the artwork really intriguing, but the beauty is, if you are familiar with Rider-Waite Smith, you can use this deck. But there's more, as they say in those adverts, and I'm really looking forward to delving far deeper into this deck, because I believe this deck is all about a spiritual journey. It's certainly not designed simply for, you know, a finance read or a relationship read or what the hell's going on in my life read. But of course you can use it for that anyway. It's still a tarot deck. But it's just, yeah, I think it's actually designed to take you further into your own psyche. This is a great deck for self-mastery. Or should I say the journey into self-mastery. And that's what I plan on doing. And isn't it amazing? It looks like the Fool is just jumping out of the sun. Beautiful deck. And I'm so pleased I purchased it, and I will take that extra step with this deck in 2017. Next on the list, Tarot of the She. Amazing deck, so different for me as well, not having a huge collection. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm being very picky about what I purchase, because my intention is to have a diverse range of tarot decks. So I'm certainly not saying I'm not going to buy any more, but I just don't want a whole bunch of clones, and I'm choosing carefully as I go. And, you know, this deck is basically, not that you could call it basic, but the foundation of this deck is all about otherworldly, fae beings, you might say. But the deck itself features really beautiful, vivid colours. It's quite stunning to look at. It's a very unique artwork system. It's intuitive. It's very strong in character as far as the deck goes, but also the characters themselves. And you see these, what look at times to be ribbons of energy, there's a good example, coming off the character or their aura. And again, you know, it's just a world of forest and fae, but also elements, you know, the fire, earth, air, water. It's earthy yet otherworldly. I just love the fact that it's so unique. And I love the fact that she painted this deck. When I say she, sorry, Emily Carding. She just went totally and utterly with her intuition. It's like she picked up a paintbrush and the paintbrush just did its own thing. So it wasn't this mechanical, you know, I'll start from the Fool and work my way through sort of scenario. A beautiful deck, very interesting. I used it a lot in the earlier part of 2016, and then sort of moved on to The Wild Unknown and Dreams of Gaia. But I know that I'll always come back. I can't imagine gifting this or giving it away. Who knows what will happen in the future, but I just can't imagine. It's just too special and too unique. Next on the list for me for 2016 is this little baby. Something I would not have imagined putting on my top 5, but I think it's because this came to me as quite a surprise. This Sacred Rose Tarot was up for sale by a lady on one of the tarot groups that I'm in on Facebook. But lo and behold, she lives in my town. That does not happen often, I can tell you. And I just thought, my God, this is a bargain. I've got to buy it. In fact, I regret not buying. She had another deck for sale. It might have been a Spiral Tarot. And I thought, why didn't I buy it? I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, trying to be careful as usual. But this was so fascinating. And what I loved about this deck is also the little white book. I'm not one to sit there and study little white books. As someone else said on the 31 days, you know, they all say the same thing. One little white book has the same cliche meaning for the cards as another. And that's true of most, but not this one. I actually did an unboxing and a deck walkthrough. And so if you like the artwork, you might like to take a look at this. But all in all, there's 55 pages. And I think even though for the, say the minor arcana, it's not quite as extensive, but reading about the major arcana in this deck is very, very, I think it's well thought out. I think the explanation for the major arcana is well written, considering they had to squish it into a little white book. If you haven't seen this deck or you're not familiar with it, it's actually, the art is inspired by the artistry of the medieval stained glass windows and like the artistry, the craftsmanship of the Byzantine era. And it prompted me to look into it further, and I just found the whole thing so fascinating. And it was an incredible era anyway, let alone, you know, looking at tarot decks that are based on the artwork. But I just thought the whole concept was fascinating. And I love these little beings. They're a little otherworldly also, wouldn't you say? I'm not sure if this camera is focusing very well. But this deck reminded me a little of the Tarot of the She when I looked into their eyes. I just feel like they have that, you know, dare I say that word again, otherworldly look. But also look at the depiction of some of these cards. It's just not a clone of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Not in the artwork, that's for certain. And certainly not in the meanings when you do read up, especially, as I said, on the major arcana. Some of the, like these two as an example, they look a little pip-ish. But that's not a standard format for this deck when you look at, say, the Seven of Cups here. I find it so intriguing and so interesting, and I just felt it was definitely worthy of being on my top 5 decks because I have spent a lot of time with this deck in 2016. So that's my top 5. However, there's one extra I'm going to throw in. That lovely lady who I purchased the Sacred Rose Tarot from also gifted me this deck, and I'm so thrilled because I mentioned to her that I'm going on a study journey in 2017. I want to study Tarot of the Spirit, Tabula Mundi when I do get it, and also the Tarot of the Holy Light, even if I just do it, you know, via the app. But of course, the big gun has to be a part of that journey, of course, and that is the Thoth. And next thing she says, I have a present for you. And I was so thrilled. That's such a really beautiful thing to do. She didn't have to, but she did it, you know, through her heart. And what I found interesting, even though I've seen this deck so many times, I've had reads, you know, by clairvoyants who used this deck. But when I sat quietly with myself, I just didn't realize how diverse this artwork is. So without even having delved into a proper Thoth textbook yet, I was still able to do some spreads for myself for 2017, and it was actually the transition from 2016 to 2017. And my goodness, this deck does not muck around. It was amazing. And I don't even have a, you know, fully comprehensive understanding of this deck, but I still knew what it was telling me. It's bold, it's brassy, it's on point. It's not here to faff around, and it's filled with character, and I loved it. It's funny, you know, because I did, you know, when you do a spread and you use 2 different decks and ask the same question, I felt I got more of an answer out of this than the Rider-Waite-Smith that I used, even though I'm far more familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith. I just looked at the keywords and you know, the artwork, and it blew my mind basically. So I'm really looking forward to working with this deck and learning about the Thoth system in 2017. So there is some discipline required for me this year, and I better bloody stick to it. Okay, I think that's it. That is day number 2, my top 5 decks of 2016. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.